Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast presented by the 2019 Legends of Pittsburgh Crews. My name is Joe Kuzma, and I am seconded by Brian E. Roach, who may be more like a wily coyote with the explosives, and I'm the Roadrunner. Or how does that work? Because I just want to get away right now and go meet. What's going on, Brian?
Yeah, and I just want to blow some stuff up.
I could empathize either way. Maybe we both like Wile E. Coyote here, and just as long as it doesn't blow up in our face. We already know the final result here. Steelers, it's been a while since they lost on the road. We saw some road Ben Roethlisberger with a couple of picks and whatnot in a 24-17 loss. Steelers didn't get over 20. Defense gave up more than 20, and it is very disappointing. If I had to sum it up in just a handful of words, I would say the Steelers beat themselves.
Yeah, I tweeted at the end of the game, you cannot overcome the kind of mental mistakes and just dumb plays that they did against a playoff caliber team. And I know people are going to go, I actually saw people tweeting out, 500 team playing down. No, this is a team that's a playoff caliber team. Just look at the schedule that they've already played. And remember, this is also a team that beat the Chargers last week. So it's a good team. They're a good team. And against a good team, you can't do what the Steelers did and expect to come out ahead. And they didn't.
I'm trying to figure out where to begin. We have so many things. They didn't influence the game, but we have to mention that the refs stink. I mean, that's just,
God. Well, let me categorize that.
Totally
they absolutely did influence the game at one point.
Yes.
The first pick that Ben throws to, he's trying to hit Santonio, who is being held and who was being held throughout the entire game. That's why Ben was so animated and upset after that pick. It wasn't just a stupid throw by Ben. It was a throw where he anticipated Santonio being there, but he couldn't be there because he was being held. So the refs and their inability to consistently call plays, as well as the lengthy conversations to come to the incorrect decision on things, was also very aggravating. They stink. They triple-double stink. Deodorant cannot cover up their stench.
Oh, the rule with the touchback fumble thing is just horrid to begin with. But did you really believe by the referee's body language, the side judge or line judge or whoever's there in that corner, did you really think that they were that convinced of the call as they're making the X motion waving over their head and trying to arrive at, should I signal this a touchdown? Or they didn't ever even really signal the touchback. It just signaled that there was something here and it's a dead ball. And I'm just like, they huddled together, and I'm really mad at CBS about this because they didn't show anything. They went to a commercial. They kind of showed something that was from like the same angle you already saw it on TV, which isn't going to tell you whether or not the ball was jarred out, whether there was any piece of brown or the nose of the ball that went over the goal line. I'm kind of irked about that because I would have liked to have seen it a little better. The pylon cam was kind of like, okay, but it was like zoomed into his crotch, basically. That is Xavier Grimble on what would have made a huge difference in this 7-point loss. And to me, it was probably the right call. I don't know that I trust Al Riveron and the instant replay crew to just leave it up to this. It's like you come back to Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, and then they start explaining it, and they show this zoomed-in shot, and I'm just like, really? But the Vance McDonald yes and no's, the decision and not decision to throw flags here, the one on a third down that killed that first drive, that first possession the Steelers had before the blocked field goal, leaving 10 points on the table there, not to mention some of the other points that were left on the table throughout this game. But then you get in there later on and are trying to say he it's a pick play. And for me, as much as I know Terry wanted to hear Tony Romo's voice again for one more week, he sounded about as bumbling and stumbling as Dan Fouts at times, because I've never seen somebody, you are talking about a playoff caliber team, but we're talking about a team that entered the game 4-6, with Case Keenum as their quarterback. This isn't the Peyton Manning, who am I looking for? Gary Kubiak coached model franchise Super Bowl contending Denver Broncos right now. There are elements of that, the remnants of that, just as there's a remnant or two still from the Steelers playing in their last Super Bowl. And it's just Tony Romo to me. I'm like, are the Patriots playing? Because he was blowing so much smoke up there behind. It was making me gag.
Well, look. The laws did change in Colorado, and maybe Tony Romo was high.
Definitely a mile high. It may have affected it. It may not enough oxygen in the brain, maybe.
And as much as I'm aggravated about the refs, and as much as they stink, they're certainly not, even though they impacted the game, they're not why the Steelers lost the game.
No.
We're not throwing this out there as an excuse and saying, "Oh, the refs cost us the game." No, the refs did not cost us the game. They didn't help us any, but they didn't cost us the game.
But this is Tony Corrente's crew, the Jesse Cottet guys, and they were also the Sunday Night Ravens guys earlier in the year, during that debacle as well. Yeah. So I don't get a good vibe when his crew's been around. It's like 3 straight losses with Tony Corrente and company officiating the game. And the Vance McDonald thing, at least Tony Romo came back around and said it was like ticky-tack. But the other thing that was bothering me throughout the game, how many times did you see somebody from the Steelers get tackled and have to adjust their helmet and or face mask? You would think when you called that earlier in the game, we'll just call it once and then they'll just stop doing it. It did not prevent them from just like trying to take people's heads off as though they were Lego people or something like that, like their helmet. And it happened several more times. I saw JuJu get tackled on the sideline like that. Yeah. And I tweeted out at one point that, AB and James Conner don't want to wear actual Denver Broncos players as chains and necklaces around their neck. It was ridiculous.
Absolutely. And, you say, well, maybe they thought they'd stop. Apparently, they said, well, they're not going to stop, so we're just not going to tell on them anymore. I guess the rest, they win. Okay, maybe that is okay. We don't know. We don't know anything.
Well,
AB
had a nice little the interception was pretty egregious, as you would like to say, and the rest of it, that would have took one turnover over. Then you get the freak things. You got the Xavier Grimble freak fumble. You got the James Conner ball just slips up, like maybe it's the atmosphere. Maybe they need to check the pressure of the balls. Maybe it's different, a mile high up or whatever. And I don't know. It was just like anything that can happen. The blocked field goal, and then Ben's interception at the end. And what's funny is there's like a bunch of people out there, even within our circle here at Steel City Underground. Why don't they just run the ball? Well, obviously they just tried to run the ball, and Tony Romo's like, this isn't the front you try and run the ball against, et cetera, et cetera. I was looking for something a little more tricky there, but they also tried that little pitch play, and that's what led to the amazing, and probably the highlights of the night being the Chris Boswell pass to Alejandro Villanueva, which was just mind-blowing. Can you imagine if that wouldn't have worked, though? I mean, it almost, what it reminds me of? You remember the Seahawks game a few years ago? It was just a comedy of errors, and this is probably the way I would chalk this game up to, despite Ben. Well, we'll get into the numbers here in a second, but comedy of errors. Yeah, look, I said this to a bunch of guys. I don't like playing in Denver. Ever since the What's Your Hoocher, whatever his name is, the guy Terry's in love with, Tim Turdbo, whatever his name is. Ever since that game, that guy. He who shall not be named 8.
Denver version. Yeah, Denver version.
Well, I think he wore 8, didn't he? Or did he wear 6? It was one or the other.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
I don't know. But ever since that game, I feel like a hinky feel when we have to play in Denver. They play this game in Heinz Field. I think the Steelers win this game easily. Playing it in Denver, I'm telling you, you get the feeling from the moment Boswell's kick gets blocked, then Grimble fumbles out the end zone. There's bad mojo in Denver.
Well, you know what? Even based on the last weekend against the Jaguars, where I felt they had played poorly enough to not deserve to win, I still thought they were going to pull it out. And that little dink-dunk, whatever Ben was trying to throw the ball, I mean, that wasn't going to get to Antonio Brown, even if the defensive lineman wasn't there. That's just the sad the sad truth to it. I mean, it was just a bad throw, and there were some bad throws throughout the game. I mean, there was a really big blown opportunity. Was that James Washington down the field that tried JuJu maybe that tried to lay out for one, and then James Washington I think could have had one. There were a lot of missed opportunities where the no fly zone, which was more like the flags fly zone, because it was like they were just coached to grab, not pass interference necessarily, but just grab. If you're beat, just grab and get the defensive holding or whatever, which is the smaller of the penalties now instead of a spot infraction. And it was just, oh my goodness, it was like all these missed opportunities, and you're just rolling your eyes. You still felt some way that this was going to turn out around and be okay. And you know what? In the end, it didn't. And I'm sure Ben's going to wear this one pretty heavy on himself, because ultimately, he throws the one interception, and then of course the final one at the end of the game. But it had that very ugly, like, no holds barred, referees whistle in the pocket kind of deal with the Jesse caught it in a New England Patriots game. It was the same way I felt. I felt disgusted, but again, it wasn't necessarily, the referees could have changed any one call in that game, and it's not going to change the fact that the Steelers turned the ball over, 4 times? So it still comes down to, all right, if Xavier Grimble or James Conner doesn't fumble, this result's probably different.
Yeah, you cannot turn the ball over 4 times on the road and expect to win. And if you want to count the blocked kick as a turnover, that's five turnovers. The Broncos scored the vast majority of their points off of turnovers. They scored their first 3 off of the blocked kick. They scored, touchdowns off of, Ben's interceptions. They cannot make those kind of mistakes. And I don't know. That last play is going to bother me, because I don't know what in the world he was doing. There was nowhere to go with that ball, and I don't get it. And there was a bit of pessimism, and I'm telling you, it's because of the Denver thing. When Ben made his run towards the end, the one that you felt, because we talked about this in the back room, you felt he was going to dive for and pull a Superman move and fly into the end zone, or maybe like a Heath Miller move where Heath reaches the ball out with one hand and hits the pylon. That play, which Ben wasn't going to do because that's just not him. But when he didn't make it, man, I was like, oh, no.
See, I felt that way last week when James Conner dropped the wide open pass, and I said, that was it. There's the game, and they're going to lose, and they deserve to lose this, except this time around. Now Ben gets down to the 3, and he didn't really lay out there. If he laid out, he's 6'5". That's 2 yards right there. He's 2 yards of a man, okay? Big Ben. Doesn't get a grown-ass man award this week, sorry. But anyway, he's still a grown-ass man any other day of the week, usually, especially any day that ends in Y. This one, I'm just thinking 3 yards short. Oh, he would have maybe got just right there. But here's the problem. The Steelers burn these timeouts early, and they're still looking to at least try to tie the game. And I'm wondering how aggressive Tomlin would have been if he would have went for 2. There's still some guys on the Denver side of the defense. Let's put it this way. Let me go. Okay, Ben doesn't lay out, but I would have liked to have seen that. I don't know. You got like a minute. Let me see, where were we at here? When Ben runs down there to the 12, that's the 2-minute warning. And then you have an incomplete pass. You have James Conner, left tackle, for a yard at 1:53, and then the next play that's run with the interceptions, 1:07. So you would have at least gotten to maybe 4th down with a minute left if that's an incomplete pass. I swear last week was maybe it's the only time in recent memory I could think that Ben actually threw the ball like away and maybe out the back of the end zone intentionally out of the way of anyone. You never see him do that. We make fun of guys like Andy Dalton or Joe Flacco doing it, but it's the smart thing to do. You see Drew Brees do it a lot, and there's nothing wrong with it. You see Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers do it a lot, and I'm like, I just don't understand. It seems almost like it's forced, and that play was so out of sync. You could tell from – I'm surprised it wasn't a false start or an illegal shift or illegal motion or something of that nature. I don't know if the motion is still an NFL thing or if it's just the shift. That might be a college jargon there, but you know what I'm trying to say. It just looks so badly executed that it's like, live to fight another down, man. You're 3rd and 2. You still got one more to go, and you guys, you're the Steelers offense. You're Big Ben, and you can do it.
Yeah, the more I think about this game, the more I become convinced that there is something about the Mile High Air, and maybe it's the new Mile High Air, but they were scatterbrained. I mean, it was like you went from plays like JuJu's 97-yard touchdown, which is an amazing throw by Ben, hanging in the pocket, getting pounded, a tremendous throw, hits JuJu in stride, to that last play. They went from the moments of being the Steelers that were playing the Panthers to the first 3 quarters of the Jaguars game, all kind of wrapped up in the same game. And it was a game that they, if you look at it statistically, they dominated this game.
Yes, absolutely.
It shouldn't even be close. And you knew at the half when it's, you look at it and you're like, it's 10-10 and the Broncos barely have 100 yards of offense. How is this possible? Well, that's what happens when you consistently shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, that was 10 points right there. We're going to talk about some we do still have some grown-ass men. One of them definitely is JuJu Smith-Schuster, and he's going to be on the 2019 Legends of Pittsburgh cruise. See what I did there?
I do.
Yeah, he was there last year too, so he wants to sail with people just like you, and you too, Brian, and me as well. But join JuJu and company, a lot of other Legends of Pittsburgh for an unforgettable experience. You're going to want to hurry, though. There's less than 30 cabins remaining, so reserve your spot today. You could book now at the Legends, or I'm sorry, not the, but www. I don't know that we necessarily need the W's, but just to let you know, legendsofpittsburghcruise.com or call 877-381-5553 and use promo code SCU19 when booking. We also have some information, more information. You could find it not only on their website, but also over at steelcityunderground.com/legendscruise. Now, speaking of that, grown-ass man, JuJu, that 97 yards wasn't even like, that was the bulk of what he had, but he had 189 total, 13 receptions off of 17 targets. He probably could have had like 250 or 300 yards in this game if Ben would have hit him, if he didn't drop one pass here or there. He was an absolute monster. I thought Antonio Brown still had a good game, as did 5,000th string wide receiver. And I got to explain this to people now. If you don't know the joke already and you're not already chuckling, one of the local Pittsburgh radio personalities, I guess I could say his name. You protect the innocent or guilty here. They did come to a resolution, though, but I think it was Colin Dunlap that originally said something like he's an 8th-string receiver, and he was talking some smack about Switzer from last week. And Switzer, of course, when you do this stuff on Twitter, you're in the public domain, and the player took some exception to it when he read it. Didn't even know 8th string was such a thing. So they went back and forth, and I guess they went offline and came to a resolution to donate. I do believe it was to like colon cancer, your bunghole. It was something like kind of comical to that, but they come to a resolution that I think it was like if Switzer, for every pass he catches, like $20 from one or the other or both, and $40 or whatever per catch ends up going towards charity. And Roethlisberger's gonna double that up or something. Now he tweeted that out like a day or two ago. Well, Switzer catches 6 of 8 of his targets for 67 yards, so not too shabby for a 5,000th string receiver there. And then Ben, out of 56 passes, by the way, Ben completes 41 to I don't even know how many receivers here, Brian. We're running out of room on the sheet.
93.
There's not even that many on the roster that are active, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 different receivers. There was no lack of options out there. It was just execution.
Yeah, and let me say something, because Ryan Switzer absolutely deserves the Grown-Ass Man Award, or a Grown-Ass Man Award this week, if for nothing else than holding on to the ball when whoever it was decided to try and take his head off. Now, I know they said that was a shoulder that he led with. Baloney, it wasn't. Look at the replay again. There's helmet-to-helmet contact. Switzer's lucky to stand up after that, and he held on to the ball. I watched that, and of course I said, Ryan Switzer is a grown-ass man.
Well, he also fumbled the ball too, so I kind of take him down a notch on that one. It's like if things could go wrong, that was one that
but they got it back. They got that one back.
Consolation.
So,
here's the real problem for me, and I've said this before. James Conner. People are talking about bounce back game. The Broncos' running defense this made me like absolutely insane listening to Tony Romo parrot this over and over and over during this game. Trying to say, well, the Broncos played some pretty good teams, and since this and this and this, and they hadn't given up that many rushing yards and blah blah blah. It's like baloney. Some their lowest totals. Okay, they gave up 75 to the Texans, 60 to the Rams. That's because that Rams game was tight for some reason. It was a 23 to 20 game where the Rams won, and that was at Mile High as well. So that just goes to show you that some teams struggle playing there for sure, because even Kansas City's high-powered offense was only able to muster 27 to 23 win in that same game. But only 3 of these games all year long had they held, now the Steelers being the 4th in the least rushing yards in a game. I think the least. I got to go back and look at this now and see how much we had total. No, maybe not the least, but very close to the least because of Ben's run. Ben had 18 yards rushing here too, but Conner only 53 yards. There's a strong problem with this. You have a team that's like 27th or 28th against the run, and they're trying to say, well, okay, were the Seahawks like a powerful rushing football team here? Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I have this actually flipped. So the Steelers are like the 7th team. The teams that ran all over them were the Chiefs. It was the Rams. The Rams ran all over them for 270 yards with Gurley, and you just saw Gurley win the. That's the point I was trying to make with the Rams. Aside from the tight thing, the Denver couldn't run against the Rams, which is what the Steelers should have had done. And Romo was trying to say that Lindsey, he's the first 100-yard rusher. Well, everybody has these running back by committee things, so of course. But the Jets put up 323 rushing yards. The Chiefs had 142, and the Rams had 270. And then, of course, they clamped it down. Well, they played the Chiefs again, and that was a tight game too, 30-23. But they spanked the Arizona Cardinals. They're not doing anything against anybody, and the Texans almost got 100 on them too. But they were 27th, a little skewed with the few teams in Gurley. But Gurley was like the NFC Man of October. He was the same thing that James Conner got. James Conner, it is just appalling to me that he only had 13 carries in this game. It was another one of these things. You can't set up the play action, of course, unless you actually run the football. And it's just Conner had a 4.1 average in this game. There was no reason to not keep giving him the rock.
I completely concur with that. Now, I'm going to say this about that Jets game because it's the abomination on the Broncos schedule.
Sure it is. It's the Jets.
But
it's the Jets.
It is, but everybody has one of those games. They, like as you said, look, they held Kansas City to the 2 lowest point totals they've had all year. They held the Rams to 23 points. This is a good team. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's a good team. It doesn't matter how much rushing yards they gave up, overall. But that all being said, I agree with you. They get into this weird mindset at some point, and I don't know whether it's just because, Ben and Randy are good buddies and have been good buddies forever, and Ben wants to throw the ball. I don't know. I don't know what it is about what's going on with the play calling where they just forget that they have a running back. And they just stopped calling. I mean, the first 2 drives, I think it wasn't until the second drive they even called a running play. And the first drive wasn't that short.
Yeah, it was I have it too. It was just pass. It was like 8 straight passes to open up the game. Let me see what we got here. First quarter, okay, 3 and out by the Steelers defense. I was like, then it was, let me see, pass, incomplete. 9 passes? I think I got 9 passes here, and then the blocked field goal. And it was just like, that's always a recipe for disaster. And then James Conner finally gets the handoff, the next possession. This is after they're down like 3-0 now after the blocked field goal, and Denver has 8 plays, 39-yard drive, short field. and the defense still holds to a field goal. The defense still mostly getting their job done. I mean, it blew an assignment or two here or there, but that's here nor there. So you run the ball twice, and then you pass it 3 times. Then you run it, then you pass it, then you run it, then you pass it, then you run it, then you run it, then you pass it. And then that was the Xavier Grimble deal with the fumble. So it was a little more balanced in that, and it should have worked, and it opened up Xavier Grimble there. But we didn't see a whole lot of that like throughout most of the game. It was here it goes again. Here's the next possession, Brian. Not to bore all our listeners, there's a James Conner run, and it's followed up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It was a 9-play drive, 8 passes. And that was the one that they finally got the field goal and tied the game 3-3. The balance, you don't always need balance, I think balance, but the game script, it's not like the Steelers were out of this game at any point where they had to go pass happy, and it just drives me absolutely bonkers. You have a weapon like James Conner. This isn't even a James Conner thing. This happened with Bell before, over previous years, and everybody's like, fire Todd Haley and all this other stuff. These running backs in the Steelers offense need to touch the ball 20 to 25 times, carry the ball 20 to 25 times. 18, 19 also acceptable depending on game script and the temperature of the game and all that. And then after that, okay, usually it ends up working out to a victory, and I just don't – it drives me bonkers.
Yeah, I just can't – like I said, I can't understand what convinces them to get away from it. It as you said – a 4.1 average is not bad. It's not that the run didn't work at all. It's almost like if Connor's not going to bust a 30-yard run in there somewhere, then they go, oh, well, this isn't working. And it's working fine. You just have to be patient.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Well, I want to flip over to the defense real quick. There was a handful of sacks in this game. Vince Williams got one. Cam Hayward got in there for a half sack, as did Javon Hargrave. Javon Hargrave, man. Oh. Just lighting it up again. Well, Cam Hayward was too, and they were getting some crazy pressure. Mike Hilton gets a little bit called out here for one of the most obvious neutral zone infraction calls. It was almost as bad as Bud Dupree being offside earlier in the year. The leading tackler in this game is Terrell Edmonds, which kind of tells you a little bit of the tale of this. Some of that was, hands full with Phillip Lindsay, a little bit of Royce Freeman, okay, first 100-yard rusher. Fournette could have easily gotten that. The Jaguars, all they did was run the ball the week before, but they have, again, a complement of backs that they were using. So I don't put a lot of stock in that type of stuff. And this game annoyed me. It was like, can you ever watch a Steelers game and not have some form of anxiety? I mean, we got to watch the Ohio State University the day before, and I said, God, why can't the Steelers just have a game like this where they go in and they play somebody that you dislike? Now, not that the Broncos are somebody we necessarily despise. Like, I'd much rather see a whooping put on like the Patriots or Ravens or somebody like that. But why don't we ever see, they come out, they did it with the Panthers, I guess, and, it didn't look so promising to begin, and then it was like, boom, pedal to the metal, right down to the floor. I thought this game could have been that way, and I think with the way these, they left these points on the table, beginning and end of the game, in between 3 really solid drives, the Conner fumble, the Grimble fumble, and the interception at the end, anywhere from, we'll call it field goals, 9 points on up to, we'll say 21 if nobody misses PATs and even 2-point conversions. That would have gotten us into the ballpark of 40 points. And we would have all been happy campers, and we wouldn't be, crying over spilled milk,
Absolutely.
as Monday morning quarterbacks or whatever, even though it's not Monday morning yet. But you know what I mean there, and it's just it's disappointing to me. I mean, the Broncos have a nice young nucleus of a team. I still don't know that Case Keenum is the answer at quarterback there, but he's effective enough, and he doesn't turn the ball over. Emmanuel Sanders, it made him look above average, made him look good, maybe great at points. And he caught that one touchdown. He gets free, and Edmonds has actually 2 people that he's trying to guard and decide which one he's going to get. And Keenum's smart enough to flip it to whoever he picked wrong, essentially. Thought he might have had some other help there to the right or on his inside if you rewatch that one play on the one touchdown. And it's disappointing, but you know what? It's not necessarily unexpected. I'm not going to lose my mind over losing this game. There are more games to play. If the Steelers lose like 4 of the, what do they got? 5 games left, right? I was looking for 4-2 over the next 6. Some people are like, well, that's not good enough for a bye. It may or may not. But you know what? All you got to do is get into the dance, and you just need the ticket. You just need the invitation. And that's what I'm more concerned with. Win the division, and I believe that they're going to do it. If they stumbled over one of these games, I think we found out which one is the one. We know there's some firepower coming in. West Coast team traveling to Heinz Field next week with the Chargers. Broncos beat them too. Now that's a division game when they play each other. So you just, all bets are off in those division games. We already know. You went over the schedule in a podcast where everybody panned you for looking ahead of everything. But it's the Patriots and Saints are on there, so you got to expect it. They might fall to one or both of those teams, but if they beat one or the other and they take care of business against the lowly Raiders, the Bengals who are imploding badly, and they have the home field advantage and take care of it with the Chargers, this kind of plays out the way that we expected it. And I'm just going to close the book on this game and say, all right, you got it out of your system. Now proceed forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. This drops them from the 2nd seed to the 4th seed. But I mentioned this in that podcast because I kind of want to get your take on this. I'm not sure I want them to have a bye.
Yeah, or the rest. See, there's the thing. They rested everybody week 17 against the Browns. Practically everybody.
Yeah, I don't want them to rest people and then be off.
And then be off on top of it. It's almost like these guys thrive on playing, and they get that first game at home. That's the problem, though. If they don't have it, you got to count on somebody else, lower seed, winning, in order for that game to come back to Heinz Field for the divisional. And I would much prefer to have a divisional game at Heinz Field, but it always seems like a problem. You remember the Ravens divisional game many moons ago where you go into halftime and it's just like, man, I don't know. When's the last call for the beer? I'm going to need a lot of that stuff. And it was like Joe Flacco fumbled. It was, you talk about comedy of errors. That was like one of the games that was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever experienced, and I was there in person too, but it was so wild and unbelievable. You would have never thought they would have come back and won that game. And I don't think that happens if it's not at Heinz Field. There's a certain magic to playing at home and your home crowd getting into these games, and playing a mile high is a problem. And I don't know. I definitely don't want to be going up to New England or something like that. They have a bye and you win, and then all of a sudden, you're moving on up into there or Arrowhead the way it stands right now, right? Yeah. And if they're the 4. It would be Arrowhead because Kansas City is currently the 1 and New England's the 2. So you would almost need somebody else. Well, it wouldn't come back on the divisional. I'm sorry. Those would be the 1 and 2 seeds anyways. But AFC Championship game, like you needed the Jets to beat the Patriots the one year, and the Jets did. And then it was there, and Butt Fumble comes out and then works his magic, and the Steelers go to the Super Bowl. And that's exactly kind of the thing you need. But I do feel that there's a little bit of a rust factor to that, as much as nobody wants to admit that. It's tough because you get that far, and I know you're not a hockey guy, but this was kind of like the way I looked at the Penguins last year when they were in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They had no break. I mean, you go to the Stanley Cup playoffs, that thing's like months long. They're playing into like July or something. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now it's training camp in August and preseason in September. The guys didn't get any break, and they won back-to-back Stanley Cups, and they were going for a third. And they just looked gassed and exhausted. And football players take just a crazy amount of punishment that I think over 17 weeks, there is definitely one thing is it's one less game to play. It means it's one less game that you have to win. It's one less game that you risk to lose. And I think that is definitely an advantage to the teams that have the buys. The rest and the rust factor, that kind of sucks in a way. I don't know if there's a preparation or anything else to it, but I would hedge my bet. I like the rest. I don't like the rest week 17 necessarily. Give these guys a half or something, because I think it's almost too long, where I don't know if this is a CBA thing, Brian, like where you can't put on pads, you can't hit, you can't do these things, and that factors into now you go out and you're hitting somebody for the first time in 3 weeks, and it's like now you're not in the football shape we talk about, building up the calluses and stuff like that. So maybe not the week 17 rest or something like that, but that one extra game that you have to play, that's what? Might be 60, 70 plays more that you have to that log on the body. It's like an odometer. It's mileage you're putting on. You got some guys that get a little older. You got, Ben. I don't know that I necessarily want to go through all that. So if that answers your question there, I'll take the bye all the time, especially the top seed.
Well, when I looked at it, the benefit of the home is hard to overlook. But, because there was some speculation about, well, the Steelers just look like they haven't lately been performing well, but their overall record off of a bye in the playoffs is 10-3. So you kind of want to lean that direction. Cowher lost once off of a bye. Tomlin lost last year to Jacksonville, and Noel lost once off of a bye. So they each one of the last three coaches has done it once, and they're 10-3 coming off of byes in the playoff round. So, yeah, I think it's probably better to have it, but you just wonder the way they came out of the bye this year and the mini bye in Jacksonville. But hey, it is what it is. It may be out of their hands at this point. They really, their destiny is still sort of their destiny, because I think the Patriots, if they win out, obviously the Patriots are going to lose at least once more because they're going to lose to us.
Yeah, buddy.
But
Tony Corrente won't have that game either. He's already had us twice. He cannot have the Steelers one more time. Maybe not even in the playoffs, hopefully.
Excellent, because I don't want to see that guy anymore. It really boils down to, and I don't see the Texans winning out, and I actually don't see the Chiefs winning out either. So they still have a shot at getting a first-round bye, I think. But they gave themselves a much tougher road to hoe after this game.
Yeah, isn't it so unfortunate, though, that the Chiefs lose to the Patriots? It's almost like scripted, dare I say, National Fixed League. That just drives me crazy. No, I was just looking at the Chiefs' remaining schedule of Raiders, Ravens, Chargers, Seahawks, Raiders. But they do have to travel to Seattle, Oakland once, but they get a bye week, or they just had their bye week, and then they get to go to Oakland. Yeah. It's like, oh, isn't that nice, So
the Seahawks game is the one I'm penciling in as a loss.
Yeah, that's always so tough. I don't know.
Maybe.
And then you got what is it here? The Patriots just easily. The Jets were giving them a little bit of a trouble on the road, but the one thing I like here is you got the Patriots have the Minnesota Vikings. You never know what they're going to show up and be like. You've got the on the road at Miami. That's the bugaboo. You talk about the Steelers playing in Denver. The Patriots fall on the road so often in Miami in December. It's consistent. And the Dolphins are playing a little bit better a ball, and then they have to rebound, come back to Pittsburgh, so they're on the road twice, and then they get to stay at home twice for the Bills and Jets, which should be a walk in the park. But you look at those next three games, and it's like, that's not – you talk about the Steelers' schedule, it's not a walk in the park for the Patriots either. But you know what? Some smart aleck will be like, well, the Bill Belichick, blah, 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 blah. Well, whatever, I'm looking forward to the injury report. I hope TJ Watt's okay. I hope they do understand that on the visiting team locker room, there's not usually a door, and since people have been caught on smartphones peeing on the side of the field, these guys have to relieve themselves sometimes during the game, and they're and especially Mile High oxygen, H2O, people, water. Drink a lot of water in order to keep oxygen circulating in the body, staying well hydrated, preparing yourself for the Mile High climates. These guys had to go pee. It's like, they're warming up Josh Dobbs. We're warming him up in case there's a turnover. He has to go out there now because Ben's still, on the can or something. So it's just, he jogs in there and he doesn't really have a trainer coming with him or anybody. You know what I mean? It's like there's nothing going on. Oh, is that a little bit of a limp? No, he's just really got to pee. So it
would have been so great to hear Tony Romo go, let me tell you a secret. They're going pee.
Tony has some good stuff, and then sometimes I just want to reach through the TV like I did today. He would have thought Case Keenum was the second coming of John Elway, and it's just driving me nuts. But Brian, I'm gonna stop talking about this game as it was driving me crazy for the most part. But again, I'm not out of my mind. You know what I mean? When they lost to the Ravens on Sunday night, I was out of my mind. When they lost to the Chiefs badly, poor fashion, out of my mind. This is an execution turnover type thing on the road. Understand it. Time to move on. Look at film, move on, improve. Good. You got it out of the way. Now you know what it looks like. Don't do it again. You learn from making mistakes sometimes. I'm all right with it. I would have been better if they could have, forced OT or something like that, come out with a win. But again, I'll handle it. I know I sound too positive here. Too bad. That's just the way it is. It's reality. They weren't going to win every single one of these games to close out the season. That just doesn't happen. Doesn't happen with anybody. So that's all I got to say.
I understand, and you sounded a little Tomlin-esque. We'll absorb this. We'll get to work. We accept it. We accept the work that has to be done. We accept our responsibility for this. We'll absorb it and move on.
This isn't the first.
And that's the way you have to be. That's the way you have to be. Look, it's an ugly game. It didn't work out the way we wanted. I blame it on Denver and too much pot in the air.
Football is a game of adversity. It is a war of attrition.
Yes.
That's some of the Tomlinism. So love Coach T, but he's fired up, so and rightfully so. I mean, but you know what? I love that. You see him on the sidelines with Ben. Not to drag this show out any longer, but after that Boswell pass, it was like, yeah, we were working on that, And then you got Danny Smith with the wad of gum in his mouth, and
97 pieces.
Yeah, 97 pieces, the big league chews. So, Brian, thanks for joining me once again, buddy. It's been a while. I mean, it's been almost 2 weeks, me and you, because I went out to Jacksonville.
I missed you, man.
I couldn't catch up with you, and then I was sick. I'm finally over it. I have a voice again. It's a lovely thing. It's a lovely thing, and we'll get together again soon. Maybe we'll have another Daily Steelers grind in the middle of the week, because I know people are going to be yinzing. They're probably going to be blowing up the hotline or the fan mail, email. You can find that in the show notes, folks. And please send us your hate mail. I'll read them even anonymously. We're thinking about that. I would love, give us your hate mail. Give us your worst hot takes, and we'll read them, because I think a couple of them would be kind of fun. Some of these things I read on the internet are kind of trash or whatever, but it was good to be with you again.
Absolutely. Missed you, man. Happy to be here. And I like that idea. Send us your hot takes. Send us your worst. Yeah, absolutely. Your worst hot takes.
The absolute best or worst.
We'll give you a grown-ass hot take award.
Yeah, we didn't have a whole lot of these guys. What? Hargrave, Hayward, JuJu, and Switzer. And that was about it.
That's it. That's it.
I could give one to Big Al. Maybe.
And Boz, too, because that was a nice pass.
Yeah, I mean, to stand in there, took some cojones to execute that play. So
didn't screw up on the direct snap. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, beautiful direct snap, too. But since we're talking about that play, you know how the rest of it went. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. Till next time, folks, we encourage you. And hopefully you stayed safe during the Turkey Day weekend. So continue to do so. Be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.